Welcome to the 22nd lecture of the course on Sociological Perspectives on Modernity. What we have been discussing in this module on the feminist challenge to critical modernist paradigm in sociology, we have discussed the feminist perspectives on the central pillars of critical modernism through the lenses of social movements, reflexivity and rationality. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss the feminist challenge to critical modernist paradigm in sociology through the lens of holism or totality. And as you know, we have already discussed the analogy between Marxism and feminism. The way feminism also has become a part of identity politics movements, which sharply contrasts with Marxist emphasis on the analysis of present contemporary movements. We have also discussed lived experiences, and feminist refusal of the cognitive splits between analytic and normative, emotional and rational and so on. And we have discussed how knowledge or science is relative, is not universal. Had knowledge been universal, had knowledge been articulated in absolute terms, had knowledge been deduced from general principles only, then anyone could have spoken for anyone else, but it does not work in practice. I think we stopped here in the last lecture, and in this lecture we are going to discuss the feminist perspectives on critical modernist paradigm in sociology through the lens of holism or totality. To begin with, we know the debate between Marxism and feminism. As we have already discussed how you will find how Marxist analysis of social change is based on the analysis of present movements. Marxism does not dwell upon identity politics movements, rather Marxism goes beyond that, whereas feminism is more interested in the identity politics movements. There is a greater focus on enemy agency, namely backlash effects, ideology, patriarchy and so on. And the way feminism emphasized more on ideology, more on structure, but not agency, Marxism emphasizes more on agency, as compared to structure or ideology. Suppose we have already discussed what are ideologies for Marx. Ideologies are myths, ideologies are fantasies, ideologies are inverted images, ideologies are echoes of material life. In quest of truth, in quest of knowledge, one must go beyond one's own ideologies. That is what Marx. But feminism concentrates more on ideology, more on structure as compared to agency. For Marxism, agency assumes greater significance as compared to the structure or ideology. There are a variety of you will find a variety of feminist strands or perspectives. Maybe liberal feminism, maybe Marxist feminism, maybe black feminism and so on, environmental feminism and so on. I am not going to discuss the variety of feminisms. How feminists challenge or try to deconstruct modernity, that is our purpose. For example, you will find liberal feminism is not discussed here as clearly affirmative modernist in approach. Liberal feminism also suggests that modernization must be viewed as progress. When somebody says that modernization must be viewed as a part of progress, then there lies the absence of reflexivity, there lies the absence of any critical analysis, uncritical reliance on state agency and so on. Why modernization is viewed as progress for liberal feminists, not for other feminists? Because what is modernization per se? Modernization theory postulates that developing or underdeveloped countries will make progress if they follow the development pattern of the developed ones. Then if I have to make development possible, then if India has to make development possible, India has to follow the pattern of development of the United States of America, United Kingdom and so on. Okay. That is uncritical, that is unreflexive. But liberal feminism suggests that no, modernization also should be viewed as a part of progress. Okay. There lies the absence of reflexivity and so on, uncritical reliance on state agency and so on. In this that is why I am not going to, I am not discussing liberal feminism per se. What we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss different, feminist strands as a whole, so far as critical modernist paradigm in sociology is concerned. Okay. For example, idea of patriarchy in radical feminism, in Marxist feminism or socialist feminism. Okay. The way radical Marxism or socialist Marxism or radical feminism or socialist feminism or Marxist feminism would view patriarchy. For them, patriarchy also is a byproduct of the existing mode of production. I mean, they try to link it to capitalism. Okay. Patriarchy as a systematic domination and exploitation of women by men. Okay. Then patriarchy, which is seen as a systematic domination, subordination, subjugation and exploitation of women by men, okay, then there must be the limits of patriarchy concept when we used to exclude critical modernist discourse as in radical feminism. Okay. Then patriarchy is nothing but a byproduct of the existing mode of production. Okay. That is how radical feminists, socialist feminists and Marxist feminists argue. Okay. In this case, that if patriarchy would be reduced to the hitherto existing modes of production, there are certain problems. There is a difficulty in thinking about the nature of paid work rather than distribution of positions within it. There is an obvious difficulty in thinking about the nature of paid work. See, a wage alone may not be able to define the relations of production. The relations of production will be defined by the ways in which different positions are distributed within particular work or occupation or factory and so on. There is also a difficulty in explaining conflicts within patriarchal state or politics. Okay. That is why I said when you tend to reduce patriarchy as a part of, when patriarchy is reduced to the hitherto existing modes of production, okay, there is obviously a difficulty in explaining conflicts, maybe conflicts in terms of gender, okay, within patriarchal state, within patriarchal politics. There is also difficulty in explaining change within unchanged patriarchy. How can I explain social change that I will say that no, we have made tremendous changes in our economy, in our culture, in our polity and so on. But how can I make such claim in an unchanged patriarchal social order? Okay? That is why there is also difficulty in agreeing on the nature of the problem. What is the nature of such problem? What is the nature of such problem of inequality, poverty, unemployment, squalor, diseases, gender inequality, caste inequality, race inequality and so on? Is it simply biological? Is it simply psychological? Is it social? It is cultural? Is it what? Is it political? Is it economic? What? Okay. That is why patriarchy, that is why patriarchy cannot be reduced to, patriarchy cannot always be reduced to the hitherto existing modes of production. Okay? And we must try to make certain attempts to integrate certain things. Okay? Suppose Wolbe's dual systems theory, okay, that interaction may happen, interaction between movement intellectuals as well as academic intellectuals. Patriarchy, interaction, when I say interaction, I will say that no, there is patriarchy in the private sphere, but not in the public sphere, okay? Or only public sphere, but not private sphere. Okay? But that is why Walby, in a very skillful manner, she mentioned the dual systems theory, which aims at interaction or interarticulation of capitalism and patriarchy. Okay? If capitalism and patriarchy can be articulated in a much sharper manner, okay, then you will find that the shift from private patriarchy to public patriarchy, that patriarchy has not only to be condemned in private sphere, but also in public sphere. How patriarchy is operational not only in private sphere, but also in public sphere, and it is the job of the right thinking worlders, the critical minds, to interrogate patriarchy in both private as well as public spheres. Okay? Now, when Walby pointed out that there must be interaction or interarticulation of capitalism in patriarchy, okay, and then capitalism typically seen as patriarchal, but as changing the nature of patriarchal mechanisms of domination, subordination, subjugation and exploitation, it is very fruitful as an empirical hypothesis. Okay. There are obviously certain issues of periodization. Okay. Patriarchy is seen as antecedent to and more general than capitalism. Yet capitalism clearly modifies patriarchy, I mean changing gender divisions of labor, private public issues, I mean the differences between private issues, public issues, and how should we integrate them, and family changes in the structure of family and so on. Okay. I would suggest that this is a false problem. Okay. I mean, I do not suggest, I mean feminists suggest that this is a false problem. Okay. Patriarchy is at higher level than capitalism and corresponds in fact to class society in the works of Marx. Both capitalism as well as patriarchy, they dominate the known history, the known, I mean the known written history. Patriarchy as well as capitalism can be seen as continuously interrelated when we look at Raymond Williams' work through, I mean in the section on cultural studies, response to critical modernist paradigm in sociology. Okay. In the works of Raymond Williams, we will see that how both patriarchy as well as capitalism, okay, can be seen as continuously interrelated. Okay. And capitalism as well as patriarchy can be thought of in loose terms as domination and exploitation without turning what are historically specific modes of gender and class formation into an eternal structure. Okay. This is very important. Okay. I mean, we can then look at least two elements. One, capitalist patriarchy, and secondly, interaction of shifts within capitalism and patriarchy. Interaction of shifts within capitalism and patriarchy, I mean the debate between private sphere and public sphere. That is why feminists argue that my personal is also political, right? My personal is not simply personal. The way I undergo domestic violence, the way I have been subordinated by this patriarchal social order, okay? These are all political dimensions of our economic, culture and politics. Okay? Then we then look at one, capitalist patriarchy, and secondly the interaction of shifts within capitalism and patriarchy. Okay? There is also a need to consider the idea that changes in patriarchal modes of domination, subordination, subjugation and exploitation lead to shifts in capitalism as well. I mean, it points to the need for more dynamic and agency oriented theories of patriarchy. This area, this such interrogation, such engagement generates fruitful empirical hypotheses for historical and sociological analysis of institutions. Okay. Maybe you can refer to the works of Abbott, Wallace, Walby and so on, which runs risk of too much contingency, description and inability to grasp contemporary capitalist patriarchy as coherent structure or as agency system as we have already discussed in the works of Alan Turing, okay, in the Western Marxist perspectives on critical modernist paradigm in sociology. Walby, for example, especially often reads like collection of descriptions of the 1990s Britain. What is often missing is a theoretical account of what generates and renews patriarchal relations in their most general sense. Okay. After periodization issue, we are going to discuss now unified systems accounts, okay, and then we will end this lecture. Okay. There is a general agreement by now, as of now, of the inadequacy of Marxist feminism, okay, that patriarchy as a subset of capitalism. We just cannot say that patriarchy is a byproduct of capitalism. Patriarchy was also there in slavery, feudalism and so on, okay, or patriarchy cannot be reduced to only the way mode of production is designed. Okay. Feminists argue that, not Marxist feminists, this is the Marxist feminists argue that no, patriarchy is a subset of capitalism, but broadly feminists do not argue this way. Feminists suggest that no, patriarchy is at a much higher level as compared to capitalism, okay. Especially historical difficulties of patriarchy which come first, and there are a limited range of issues for which this helps. Okay. Most important idea that domestic labor as reproduction of real life in the works of Engels, and hence thinkable as constituent element of capital. Okay. That is why in Capital volume 3, Marx posed this question that that the domestic work, housework, which is carried out by housewives, they also generate some amount of income, right, huge amount of income, but they are not paid. Their unpaid income, why it is not yet included in the national income accounting. Okay. This is very important. Okay. When Engels further said that domestic labor as reproduction of real life and hence thinkable as constituent element of capitalism, okay, there are certain issues, there are certain difficulties. Okay. It does not account for other patriarchy. There is a difference between needs of capital for reproduction of labor power, okay, and the needs of individual capitalists for cheap female labor. There is a difference. Okay. Empirical value, especially in pointing to the impact of influence of housework, child care, emotional support, and especially childbearing and child care nexus, simultaneously a possible answer to why women. I mean this empirical value, especially in pointing to the influence of housework, child care, emotional support, and especially childbearing, child care nexus question, implying transferal of natural childbearing to natural child care functions, and something with a directly demonstrable influence of women's life chances in contemporary society. Okay. This is very important, that why women question. Okay. A possible, a probable answer to that question, that why women only. Okay. That no, they have, they are naturally, they are designed in such a manner to reproduce children, okay. But this reproductive capacity of women may be natural, yes, obviously it is natural, but these child care functions, okay, they are not naturally given to women, they are given to women. These child care functions are given to women by our economy, culture and polity, by this male dominated society. Okay. This is important. Please note here, however, collusion of male workers in imposing private patriarchy even against capitalist interests, family wage, threat to working class wages and organization levels. It suggests contradiction between women workers' interests on the one hand and male workers' interests on the other, which has got significant implications for women's workers' movements as well as male workers' movements. Okay. This is very important. then it requires certain unified socialist feminist theories as against Marxist feminism. Such unified socialist feminist theories do not subordinate patriarchy to capitalism, but they attempt to reconceptualize both capitalism as well as patriarchy. The early version, that Firestone, okay, Firestone, normally presented as radical feminist, but here is seen as expanding the idea of production and reproduction of real life, which Engels wrote. Firestone draws on Engels the origin of private property, the origin of family, private property and the state, generally reckoned to be failure because of her biological determinism, but brave and pioneering attempt at reconceptualizing everything. Both patriarchy and capitalism, and furthermore attempt to expand the idea of production and reproduction of real life. Okay. Later, Young and Jagar reflected on the expansions of division of labor, okay, and alienation, human alienation from work and alienation from labor, alienation from my own self, human alienation. Okay. Tong also has discussed this. Okay. Especially alienation broadens the idea of domination, subjugation, subordination, exploitation and so on, and alienation again resolves sociological issues around agencies, around the distinction between agency and structure, which should be placed on a higher pedestal vis-a-vis the other. Whether structure is more important than agency or agency is more important than structure and so on, in a very helpful way. Alienation avoids reification of limited aspects and movements of capitalism as constitutive of all class society. Okay. What is the aim of unified systems accounts or unified systems theories, or what do they claim? Okay. They claim the aim of unified systems theories, okay, is to integrate analysis of production and reproduction of real life, subordination, subjugation and exploitation, typically also integration of analysis of meaning and psychoanalysis, literary theory, politics and so on. And then the key question here is it tenable, is it sustainable and so on. And finally, some of the difficulties of agreement in 1970s feminism and some of the promises of unified socialist feminists, which relates to academic specialization or reification, political economy, biological determinism, literary criticism, psychoanalysis and so on. Such specialization of these fields and generation of narrow concepts that tends to lose hold on the totality of lived experiences. Okay. Via cultural studies, Raymond Williams, E.P. Thompson, Michel Foucault, Macroby's defense of looseness must be considered here. And in this context, okay, the issues of academic specialization, reification, political economy, biological determinism, literary criticism, psychoanalysis and so on. Okay. These specialization and these specialized fields, okay, and generation of narrow concepts tend to lose hold on the holism or totality of lived experiences. Okay. Now, then in these two lectures broadly, okay, we have discussed the feminist challenge to the critical modernist paradigm in sociology through the lenses of holism or totality, reflexivity, rationality and social movements. In the lecture to follow, in the next lecture, we will discuss as a part of deconstruction of modernity, okay, through the works of cultural studies. Who are the major thinkers in cultural studies in the, for the time being? Okay. E.P. Thompson, Raymond Williams and Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault will discuss a little because I am trying to keep Michel Foucault for the section on postmodernism postmodernists response to critical modernist paradigm in sociology. Okay? In cultural studies, cultural studies response to or cultural studies challenge to critical modernism is very important. We will discuss it in the next lecture. Thank you.